Welcome to The World is My Country with your host, Kris Allen. All-round good guy and cowboy Kris will be taking you on a trip wherever his quirky mind decides to go, in his world of country music and beyond. Every week, Kris will be joined by his special guests, who are experts in their chosen field. No subject is out of bounds. As Kris asks a question you wish you'd thought of. So here's your host, Kris Allen. Yeehaw!
Hello, everyone. How are you tonight? Great to have you back again. This is our first show going on this, The World is Our Country. And many of you may miss our previous program that we had, Monster Theater. But for today, this is we're going to take off. We're going to have guests very similar to what we've always had on the Monster Theater programs. But we'll add a lot of extras to that, especially in the country realm. And moving along with that, tonight I have a wonderful person that I'm going to bring onto the show. This man is who I consider a true hero. Now, anyone who spends their lifetime giving to somebody, an organization, or something to benefit all of mankind is a person that I would put on there to nominate as a hero. This man actually does a lot of things that are beyond our wildest dreams. He's actually built a life-size replica of a Viking ship, if I'm not mistaken, 45 foot long, with millions of popsicle sticks, 5,000 or so children in the process of 2 years to make this. And I'm going to bring him on and let him tell his story. And are you on there, Captain Rob? This is Rob.
I'm right here with you. Ahoy. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. How's the weather over there in Amsterdam?
Oh, it's cold. Very cold. Winter's coming in now.
It sure is. Our leaves are finally almost off our trees around here. And from looking at some of the storm fronts that we've had on this side of the globe, it might be quite a brutal winter this year. But nevertheless, tell us a little bit about yourself. Good Lord, I don't even really know where to begin because you have, 30 world records?
A little bit more, but yeah. I've been breaking world records pretty much since my childhood, Kris.
Wow.
I was burned up as a child and was sent to a hospital, a burn hospital, where I lived many years recovering from burns. And at that time I was laying in a bed watching every friend I made die from burns, and I was dying myself, and all I knew is the doctors and nurses hurt me, and I that's what a child knows. I'm speaking to you now as from the child's perspective of laying in that bed. I can remember some really horrible things being a burn child. And that's what I understood. I was far away from home. That was about more than 1,500 miles, and nearly burned to death laying there, and no one I knew around me, and the little friends I made were dying. Those are my memories. Wow. Those are my memories, and I realize it. Go ahead, Kris.
Memory. No, I was going to say, what a tough memory to have to relive that. But, I mean, you surely have recovered dramatically since then. The things that you've done out here and what you're doing for the children, it's just nothing but amazing. This man, ladies and gentlemen, gives out, is it proper to say millions of toys?
I've given out 37 million toys in my life.
Oh, wow.
And the count just came in, actually, from Guinness's and Ripley's book.
Wow.
Now, now you got to understand that's from my hand directly to theirs.
Now, when you were in the hospital, how did you happen to get burned? I mean, can you share that with us, or something you don't want to bring up? Or?
No, it's okay. It's usually something I never bring up. It was a gasoline explosion at my home.
Okay.
And I was literally in flames in my backyard when my late sister at the time threw a blanket over me. I was in flames. She threw a blanket over me. And the city of Jacksonville, Florida at the time, the ambulance came and they screamed for ice cubes. So all the neighbors brought ice cubes. This is my memory, what I remember of it. And they all brought ice cubes to me, and that was the end of that memory. Mm-hmm. Next, I woke up in Galveston, Texas, at the Shriners Burn Hospital. And I was looking up, and I saw my arm being suspended by cables with no skin on it. I had no skin on my back. And I remember the intense pain, and I didn't know where I was, but it was 30 days later. That's what I learned. It was 30 days later. I was laying in that bed.
So they must have had you in like an induced coma, or were you in a coma? Or
I really can't say. I was a child. I don't know what they did. Yeah, they must have done that because of the amount of pain. I don't think anybody human could endure that and survive without shock. Right. Or it could have been the shock itself. I was a child, so I don't know.
So when you were in the hospital, you talked about where you had seen, children, like you got to the point where you didn't even want to make friends anymore because of the children that were passing away and dying, right?
Right. Well, the floor I was on was called an ICU because I remember seeing the big blue letters on the windows, on the glass windows. Mm-hmm. And all the nurses and doctors had like these space uniforms on. I mean, for a child, it's not only traumatic, it's very scary. See everybody in a mask. You don't see faces. They were in masks, and some of them in full body uniforms walking around. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there were no child psychologists anywhere in the hospital. So you just have to deal with it. And you have to deal with it for years when it happens to you. And I was just laying there on my back, and I would make friends. Like, you're there for months and months and months, so you start making friends like anywhere. You're a kid. You want to play, but there's no toys. Right. So you try to make fun. On that particular floor, the Shriner clowns and those type people couldn't go. They couldn't go there. No civilians at all. So there were no toys. There was nothing to play with. And, the doctors sometimes would make a chicken out of a rubber glove. But believe me, we weren't in the mood to smile at that time. So, yeah.
Weren't you like at that time when you were in the hospital, being that young at that time in that era? I mean, medicine, at that time was pretty brutal as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it was certainly nothing like today. Today, the kids are in and out. I understand. With the same type burns, they're in and out in 30 days. Mm-hmm. Which certainly wasn't my case. That certainly wasn't my case.
Now, you were burned almost 90% of your body, right?
78%, yeah.
Well, wow.
Yeah. Now, my entire arm, as you see, and the entire backside of me, back end of me, my bottom didn't get burned, luckily, and the back of my legs did get burned, but not permanently scarred. I guess you call the back of my legs second. The back and front of my legs were all second degrees burns, and my back arms were third and fourth, and really, really bad. So they had to do a lot of muscle reconstruction. While I was laying there, the doctors, I remember that nightmare. They kept telling me over and over and over I was going to be handicapped. I'd probably, if I could use my arm again in the future, it probably wouldn't be beyond lifting something like a little toy truck. Just don't count on ever using the arm again. This is what's going on, kid. They would just tell you brutally. And for a kid, that's hard. Mm-hmm. That's hard. I would make little friends, and you got to understand what it's like at the time period. I would make friends. I would turn around, look over, and the next morning see them with a sheet over his head. And I would look at them and say, "What's that?" And they would say, "Well, he's gone to heaven. He had a staph infection, just like you have now." That's scary. You have the same thing that he just died from. We're trying to get rid of it. They would talk to little kids brutally honest. But believe me, it was no fun. I remember that. So kids were dying around me on the floor I was on. One day a man walked in. This is where it changed my entire life. A man walked in. At that point, I had quit talking to people. I couldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I just totally closed up. And they didn't know why at that time. They didn't have child psychologists. The doctors had to work just to save your life, the doctors and nurses. They didn't have time to be anything. They had to be mother, father, they had to be your savior, and they had to be the psychologist. They had to do it all. And your school teacher, they had to be everything at the time period. Mm-hmm. They couldn't, you can't blame them. They couldn't do it. So, yeah, I was giving up. I quit talking to people. I quit communicating with anyone. I wouldn't communicate with anyone. Even, once a month, if my sister showed up, I wouldn't speak to her. I just closed off. And one day, a man showed up, a volunteer out of nowhere, was willing to put on the mask. He already had a funny-looking cape and Superman-type costume on. He surprised the nurses and doctors when he showed up, but I knew he was really somebody because they actually let him onto our ward, which is not done. That's never done. So he came in. He didn't know why he stopped dead, but he did. There was 5 coherent children in the room. At the time, there was 20 kids, but there was 5 coherent children, and he only had 5 toys. So he walked by the beds, and he just would say a little whisper, and he would hand them a toy and hand them a toy. But for some reason, he liked me, and he said it for some reason. These kids are magic, and he sat down beside me, and he gave me a G.I. Joe doll. This is a G.I. Joe toy for Action Man, over here they call it.
Mm-hmm.
He sat down and said, kid, here's what I want you to know. Well, I wouldn't talk to him, He said, this toy won't hurt you. It'll protect you. It has a gun in its hand. You could shoot the nurse in the backside. And that was the first time they ever saw me smile. Because all the doctors and nurses were looking from a distance, and they saw me smile. And that was actually the first time they heard me speak words in over 30 days. My first 30 days there, they heard me actually speak words through the pain. And all I said was, thank you. He never said his name. He walked out. He gave me a poster, though. He said on the back, here's my address, phone number. Someday contact me and just say hi. Mm-hmm. And he left just like that. Well, that toy did become my best friend. I didn't want to make friends around me, so that toy became my best friend. And I gave that toy credit for saving my life. And out of all the children on that floor, so I understand, during that whole time period I was there, only those 5 kids that got the toy survived. Wow. We're the 5, and we survived the whole thing. And so later on, I did look up who that was later on in life when I was I was 17 and wanted to go to stunt school. It was Evel Knievel.
Wow.
His name was Robert Knievel, and that's the name on the big poster I have. And I did contact him, and he was willing to teach me. I went to Butte, Montana, and he gave me a uniform to wear. He even gave me one of his outfits. And, that's kind of what I wanted to be when I was laying in that hospital bed, even before I knew who he was.
Wow.
I could lay on my back, I could lay in the hospital bed, and I could watch TV. I remember that. And the only show I would watch was Superman, because he was flying around helping people. I remember I was in so much suffering, pain. I don't know if you've ever burned your finger, guy, but if you can imagine that amount of that pain if you burn yourself in the finger, and then imagine that times 25 million the power if you're laying there like that. Wow. The pain is just no drug in the world can stop that pain. It's completely insane. And I remember I want these kids, what they need is a real life Superman. And I would stare at the way Evel Knievel was dressed in the photograph he gave me, and I'm thinking, I want to create a Superman for these kids right here in this room, for kids who are in this building. I didn't know where I was. I didn't realize it was a hospital. I really didn't. I'd never seen a hospital in my life. I was only a kid. I'd never been to a hospital, never seen a hospital, so I had no clue where I was. And I said, I want to create a Superman that can break all these kids out of this room. And I had the toy in my hand, and even then I knew the power of that toy, even then. And I said, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to be. And the doctors, did they support me? They said, you're handicapped. You can get that heroic stuff out of your head. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can do a job on a street corner or, whatever. I said, watch me. I'm not a handicap. Watch me. I didn't, at the time, really, I wasn't even sure what the word was. But I said, I'm not going to be this handicap that you're calling me because you say it in a sad way. I told him that. I said, watch me. My arm will work and better than yours. And, well, all these world records